Welcome back. I'm Dr. Cheek and I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. And today, welcome to another installment of We Need to Talk. And what we need to talk about today is, can therapy coexist with religious and spiritual practices? And I'm going to err on the side of yes. In the field of psychology, we're learning more and more each day that these two things can coexist. You can go to therapy and you also can have a strong and rich spiritual and religious background or practice that you're do on a daily basis or weekly basis. And there has been some debate or some talk about this in the past, and there are multiple reasons why we've talked about this. One thing that we've had to talk about is that most studies have shown that psychologists in most cases, and most mental health providers in most cases, are either agnostic or atheist. And if you're not sure what those means, agnostic typically means that you don't not believe and you don't believe in a higher power. You don't know if one exists or one doesn't, so you don't have a belief either way. That's agnostic. Atheist is, I don't believe in a higher power. I don't believe in a God or anything of that nature. And I personally am not agnostic or atheist. I consider myself to be spiritual. When I wake up every day, I start my day by saying a prayer to my higher power. I say a prayer to God. I say a prayer to the universe. I say a prayer to the ancestors. I also believe in reincarnation. And the reason why I do this is because I don't really know what's there for me after death. And when I find out, it's going to be too late to make a video about it, if you get my drift. So basically, I don't know. But I do believe in a higher power. I do believe that there is something larger than me that helps assist me or helps guide me in this world. Don't know exactly what it is, but I do believe in a higher power. And because there is no way I could have done half of the things that I've been capable of doing, or half the things that I've been capable of achieving without something higher than myself. Because there are some days that while in grad school, while in undergrad, in life in general, that I did not know if I was coming or going on most days, but I managed to keep going, I managed to push forward, and I managed to continue to do the things that I set out to do. That lets me know that there is something bigger than me out there. And another reason for that controversy between whether psychology or whether therapy can coexist with religion and spiritual practices is psychology as a field is reliant on science. And science and faith don't inherently go hand in hand. Because science is the study of things that can be proven, things that if we can't see it, we can prove its existence through experiments, through factual, scientifically backed evidence. That's science. On the other hand, spirituality, religious practices relies on faith. And faith relies on the idea that I believe in something even if I don't see it. Even if there is no evidence that proves its existence, I still believe in it because I have faith. And so naturally, it doesn't seem like it's something that can coexist, but it can. Today and age, for many of the practices that are taught in psychology, many of the newer studies are focusing on the idea that having a strong religious backing or spiritual backing or spiritual practice or religious practice is a good way to maintain mental stability. And a lot of mental health practices are incorporating spirituality or religious practices. So meditation itself, its origins are in Eastern culture or Eastern spirituality or Eastern religious beliefs like Buddhism or Hinduism. It has its foundation in those types of spiritual beliefs. And these are common practice or common skills that are taught, maybe not in the same way that they're taught in the Eastern philosophies or in the Eastern cultures, but they're taught as a way of maintaining mental stability in Western civilization, in psychology, in the field of mental health today. So we are slowly getting out of this mindset that religion and spiritual practices have no place in mental health. We are very clear, and studies have shown that having a spiritual or religious backing is a great way to maintain mental stability. And today there are a lot of providers that practice both therapeutic services or therapeutic skills and also incorporate religion. There are people who use scripture in order to provide services for individuals. There are people who incorporate their own religious faiths into the practice of therapy. And that is something that I applaud. That is something I say, go for it. I want this to be a space where we understand that therapy and religious practice and spiritual practices can coexist. Both are necessary, both are needed. You don't have to choose one or the other. You can incorporate both. I, on the other hand, can never really co-sign or get behind the idea that if you have to go to therapy, if you're dealing with like real life emotions, then you just don't have enough faith. And I can't operate, and there may be some therapists or some mental health practitioners or clinicians that know how to provide therapy with that understanding in religious practice, because I hear that a lot. In a lot of different religious practice, I hear this idea that if you have anxiety or if you're suffering from depression, is due to a lack of faith, is due to a lack of belief in that higher power. And I can't co-sign that in my therapeutic practice, because I can't co-sign anything that would teach me that my normal, natural emotions are somehow me not being a believer, or me not allowing myself to feel how I'm naturally feeling, but instead telling myself I've somehow failed in this life experiment, or I somehow failed in this thing called life because I'm having a natural, normal emotion. So I personally, in my practice, I can't back or co-sign this idea that because you have anxiety or because you have depression or you feel some natural, normal emotion to things that are happening in society or things that are happening in your life personally, that you are somehow not being a true believer or don't have enough faith in order to not have to deal with these things that are going to happen naturally, because they are innate to who we are as human beings. That's where the science comes in. The science is these are normal emotions that we all have, and we're going to have them regardless of what spiritual beliefs we have. Now, how we deal with them, on the other hand, can be dictated based off that spiritual or religious practice that we actually adhere to. Now, I do want to caution us to be careful about who we choose to see to incorporate either our religious faith with therapy or our therapy with religious faith. And the reason why I say be careful is because we don't want to run into multiple Jodi Hildebrands. If you don't know who Jodi Hildebrand is, there's a lot of things going around. It's a special that's out right now. And she was a licensed professional counselor who the media wants to outline her as a life coach, but she was doing more than life coaching. She was offering family and couples therapy to a lot of families, and she was using their Mormon faith as a way to get them to behave in a way that she wanted them to behave, or adhere to whatever therapy practice she was trying to instill or get them to buy into. And it turned out to be very detrimental to a lot of her clients. There are a lot of clients of hers that are still having to get therapy to address the things that she taught them. So I won't get into a whole spiel about Jodi Hildebrand. I just want you to be careful to not run into another one, because she's not an anomaly. There are probably more people operating from that same space. When we understand the power dynamics that we have as mental health clinicians, and then as spiritual as faith leaders, then we understand the power dynamic that we have when we incorporate both of those into one practice and want to offer assistance to someone else. You can want to believe that it doesn't exist. You can want to think that that power dynamic is not a thing. You can want to ignore it, but that power dynamic exists. When you walk into a therapy room, when you're walking into a therapist's office, you are automatically assuming that this person is the expert in the room, and you are open to suggestions that this person may have. And that same way that when you walk into your religious facility, or when you walk into a spiritual facility, you are open to suggestion to what that spiritual or faith leader says. So there is a power imbalance in those relationships, and when you combine those two, that increases the level of suggestibility of things that you may be willing to try or incorporate in your day-to-day life, simply because you are trusting that the person that you are receiving guidance from is someone who is practicing in a way that is wanting to help instead of harm, and that may not always be the case. So I do want to actually reiterate that be careful with who you trust with combining both therapy practice or therapeutic practices and spiritual or religious practices, and getting guidance from that individual. Be very careful, because that is a truly powerful relationship that has a higher level of suggestibility and a very clear power differential, and it can leave people who are going to seek guidance from those individuals open to be controlled due to those suggestions or guidance that you receive. because you're trusting that it's coming from not only their understanding of therapeutic practices, but also their understanding of a faith that you practice as well. So just be careful. And also, a side note, for real, for some of us, we will take this spiritual route and we will do everything in our power. We will ground ourselves in nature, take our shoes off, stand in the grass under the first full moon or the new moon of the month. We will burn sage, and don't get me wrong, I have a bundle of sage on my counter over there that I have and will burn. We will burn sage. We will ground ourselves in nature. We will get a sound bath. We will play different sound bowls. We will do everything except make substantive change in our lives. Don't get to that place where we start to substitute spirituality and faith for actually making substantive changes in our lives. That's what I sometimes find is problematic as well, is that we are willing to do damn near everything but change something that feels uncomfortable to change. And change does not happen when we're comfortable. I've said that a lot, and I mean it, because change doesn't happen when we're comfortable. But I do want to just reiterate the things that we've talked about today and why we needed to talk. We needed to talk because it doesn't have to be an either or. You can go to therapy. You can learn new ways of engaging and learn new skills for dealing with your environment through therapy services. And you also can have a strong religious or spiritual faith or practice that you engage in as well. And those two can be incorporated. You can find a clinician that practices both of those things, or you can find a clinician that doesn't but fully understands and respects the importance of that religious or spiritual practice, and also fully understands the value that those things can bring to any individual's life if they're able to engage in it in a way that's healthy instead of damaging. And those things can have the ability to be damaging. We have clear examples throughout time of ways that both religious practice, spiritual practice, and therapeutic practices have the ability to be damaging. So be careful about who you choose to give this power to when you're wanting to seek someone who has the ability to do both as far as therapy services and spiritual or religious practices. They exist, but be careful. And we needed to talk because we can have both. And for some of us, we need both. And it's okay. It's okay to need both therapy as well as a spiritual and religious practice backing, because they both have the ability and the potential to be beneficial. As always, I hope you take something from today's video that's actually helpful, that's useful. This has been another installment of We Need to Talk, and hopefully you take something from this talk. If you have any thoughts, questions, or comments, feel free to jot them down below. I thank you as always for taking the time to listen, and I'll be seeing you again very soon. Thank you.